do editing work, we do proofreading work, and it takes a lot of time. So you might wonder what is taking so much time, right? So after you've written something seriously, okay, if it is something like a document or say an essay, something that you are planning to publish, submit somewhere, it has to go through several layers of revision, right? It's not a light task as many might think. Okay, it's not just a simple correction in the spellings or simple correction in the punctuations. A lot of things goes into what you do with your writing in terms of revision, right? So this revision is basically then how you improve your writing also. A lot of things that you do not realize while you're writing. When you're writing, sometimes you're free writing. You're not giving a lot of attention. You are aware of what you're writing, of course, but then you're not paying attention to the details of the grammar or say spellings or even the content itself, right? So it is during the editing and the proofreading part that you catch all of these errors related to both related to all of these, whether related to the language or grammar or spellings, so on and so forth. So we're going to shed some light on that particular part in this session. We'll be looking at it. This is really, really important. It is not enough that you know how to write well. It is also very, very important that you revise the work that you do, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at those basic editing and proofreading tasks. Like what is it that basic, any written work, okay, even if it is not a serious one, what are the basic revisions that you must take care of once you've written anything. And we're also going to look at something which is more specific. Okay, it's not advanced, it's again some common surface errors and some typically committed errors. However, they are also very, very important, right? So first we look at the basic one, then we go to those individual ones, right? So I'll share my slides with you in a moment so you can see it. All right, so this would be what we're going to do in today's session. So today's mini lesson, the last of the 4 classes that we're going to have, will deal with the editing and proofreading of your paragraphs, both basics and the essentials, okay? And in the work time, you're going to edit your own work. So some of you have made submissions. I don't see, I think except Adarsh, nobody in the meeting right now has been has been consistent. So he's been the only one who's there from the beginning. So we have been doing quite a lot of activities. We did 2 or 3 of them in all the 3 sessions held before. So one thing that came up in the last class was that you need a feedback on that. So instead of I giving you a feedback directly, it is better that we do the editing of the paragraphs that you have submitted together. I have picked up like 6 of them among the ones that have been submitted because they were lengthy and they had some space for editing. The others I did not take them up because they were just 1 line or 2 line and it was not fully written or complete. So I've avoided them. Whichever ones I felt like, there has been some sort of effort in writing it, I have picked them up so that we get a wholesome understanding of what editing and proofreading is. Okay. So this is what we'll be doing. So let's look at some of the, let's understand what this means. Okay. So editing and proofreading, you might have heard these terms before. They are often used together, however, they don't mean the same. Okay, so how are they different? Editing is mostly concerned to the content that you're writing. So what will you, so in the last class, if you remember, let me quickly take you to the slide here. We looked at this, right? For descriptive writing, we looked at what are the things that you should keep in mind while you're drafting a descriptive paragraph, right? So at a logistic level, you need to have content, you need to have your language right, you need to have your style right, and finally the outline or the organization, right? These are the 4 main things, the structure as we refer to. So structure, content, style, and language are the basic for any writing activity, whether you're writing a paragraph for a report or a paragraph for an email or any other thing, right? So this has to be preserved properly. And because it is content style, so content style, etc., editing basically refers to changes and revisions or modifications within these 4 domains, right? What all? Content, language, style, and your outline, your structure. Okay, so what it will ask questions like, whether the given paragraph has a proper introduction or not, whether the written paragraph has a proper conclusion or not. Okay, has it followed the structure? Does it have a topic sentence? Does it have supporting sentences? Does it have a concluding sentence, right? These questions, okay, would be concerned with the outline. So editing will take care of things like that. Additional questions would be, has the major purpose been stated or not? Has the major main idea, as we call it, right? So topic sentence is basically topic and main idea. So has that been properly written? Does the supporting sentence actually support all of the claim that the topic sentence makes? Questions like this related to the content. Okay, has the language been properly used? Is the language suitable for the audience? Right. This is also one question. So word choice, questions related to word choice, question related to the structure, right? All of these are what we are concerned with when we talk about editing, right? So editing is mostly about these four parts of the writing task. What is proofreading? Proofreading is basically something that is about the surface level errors, right? So surface level errors could be of grammar, surface level errors could be of spellings, it could be of punctuation, or it could be of the general format in which you're writing, right? So like email has a particular format. Report has a particular format, right? This usually happens when you're writing, when you're research writing, right? You're writing for a journal, you're writing for say a magazine, right? Or a newspaper. They all follow a certain format and a template. So even that becomes a part of the proofreading. So revising on that, checking whether you have followed the right format or not, all are part of proofreading. So surface level errors, spellings, grammar, punctuation, and the format. All of them are grouped together under proofreading. So although these two words, they sound the same, right? So they're most of the times used together, editing and proofreading, they have their separate meanings. One is strictly related to the logistics of your writing, okay? Whether, you have put everything, whether it is more about the organization part of your writing, whether you have achieved that part properly. What parts? Content, style, language, and the structure, right? But proofreading is more about the surface level errors. So this is the basic difference between both of them. Now, what all things can you keep in mind? So we look at both the editing part and the proofreading part for paragraph writing, right? So basic ones, the basic editing and proofreading will include the first one, write simple sentences with one subject and a predicate, right? If you are a beginner, okay, you're not used to writing too many complex sentences, you do not know how to phrase your words properly, you do not know how to place various segments, complicated segments, like, by complicated segments, I mean things like embedded clauses, right? Embedded clauses are the ones that occur within a main clause. So you have a main clause, within that you place something else. Okay, to give you an example, I think we discussed this while we were talking about topic sentences, right? Having seen the advantages of wearing a mask, people would now, comma, okay, having seen the advantages of wearing a mask, comma, people would now take the guidelines on wearing masks seriously. So what happens? So people would now take the guidelines on wearing masks seriously is your main clause, because it is a full sentence, right? Makes complete sense. However, the first part, having understood the advantages of wearing a mask, this sounds incomplete, right? So this particular segment is called a subordinate clause. So what have you done is you have embedded that particular clause with the main clause, right? So when sentences like this come along, what happens for a lot of people, it is a tough thing to start with complex sentences. We understand what complex sentences are, but we do not know exactly how to make one, what are the things that can go into the making of a subordinate clause, etc. If that is the case, if that is the level that you stand at, for the time being, you can stick with writing simple sentences that has one subject and one predicate. Okay, the subject and its predicate. So to avoid any sort of confusions, you can follow that. Once you get a little used to the writing, you can, start off with smaller addition of smaller phrases than big clauses. You can, start adding like introductory phrases. So to give you an example, one from, okay, we'll look at it when we look at the samples that we have with us. Okay, so I'll talk about that in detail instead of simply talking about it. So this is the first one, right? Simple sentences with one subject, one predicate, right? Then the second one is end punctuations. We're not talking about all the punctuations at this point because we're talking about the basic editing proofreading, right? So end punctuations. What are end punctuations? You have full stop, the period, right? Then comma, right? You also have the question mark, right? You also have very important capital letters, right? So every sentence needs to begin with a capital letter in English, right? If the first word of a new sentence has to begin with a capital letter. So things like this, very basic ones, end punctuations. You need to end the sentence with a full stop. Then separation of more than one entities within a sentence needs to be done using a comma, right? Question mark at the end of interrogative sentences. So these are called end punctuation, the one usually that appears at the end of a sentence or somewhere where the sentence breaks, like a comma, right? So this is the second thing. Third one, sentence fragments. So look at the first one. The sentences should be simple. It should have one subject and a predicate. So needless to mention then, fragments are not allowed in English. What does that mean? When you write a sentence, it should have both the subject and the predicate, right? You cannot omit the subject or the predicate if you're writing a sentence in English. If you write something like that, then that is called a fragment. I have seen examples of fragment in the writing that I have received in the last activities. I'll point it out to you as we discuss them. Right, so that's the fourth one, and the third one, and the last one is a run-on sentences. Okay, run-on sentences, also called as fused sentences, which means you write two independent sentences, two complete different sentences. Okay, independent sentences together using a comma. Right. So example is we again that is also on the slide. So I'll talk about it in detail. So run-on sentences, or they're also referred to as fused sentences. Okay, basically meaning two separate sentences are put together in the sentence construction. Okay, that should be completely avoided. There are methods to inculcate two different sentences, two independent sentences together. We'll look at them, but it needs to follow certain convention before you can use it like that. So now we are going to discuss about each of them in detail, right? So what are the common punctuation errors that you can find in writing? So the first one is missing comma after introductory phrases. So this is what I meant, okay? In the last slide, we discussed about using, simple sentences with one subject and one predicate, right? This was the first one. Now look at this sentence. According to the weather report, heavy rains are, okay, there's a typo there, okay, A-R-E-R. According to the weather report, heavy rains are expected beginning this week. Okay, now what is the full sentence in this particular one? Okay, the sentence that you see on your screen, which one is a full clause or independent clause? Which part of the sentence sounds like a full complete sentence? Any idea? Is it according to the weather report? Yeah, you can unmute yourself and speak. Is according to the weather report a full sentence? No? Okay. Others says no. Anybody else?
Ma'am, it is not complete sentence. According to the weather report, it's not a complete sentence.
Correct. So which is the complete sentence here in the largest sentence you have here?
Heavy rains are expected beginning
Okay.
week.
Right. So heavy rains are expected beginning this week is your complete sentence, right? So that is your sentence. It has a subject and a predicate. What's the subject? Heavy rains are expected beginning this week is your predicate, right? So that part is complete. Now look at the first part, according to the weather report. Now, phrases like this are referred to as introductory phrases, okay? Do they add to the sentence? Are they very relevant to the sentence? Maybe no. Okay, so you can have that sentence even without it. You can simply say heavy rains are expected beginning this week. But according to the weather report, what does it do? It acts as a link, especially in a paragraph. If you're writing a paragraph, we know that, cohesion is something that is very important, right? So between the sentences and between the paragraphs, there should be some sort of linking
Ma'am,
to.
I want to ask here, it should be, in my opinion, I'm not sure. Heavy rains are expected at the beginning of this week, at this.
No, there is no problem with the construction of the sentence. This is okay. This is a grammatical sentence in
Heavy rains
English.
are expected at the beginning of this
No,
week.
no. This is fine, Arun. This is a proper construction in English. This
Suppose
doesn't have a
we
problem.
say heavy rains are expected at the beginning of this week, it is wrong.
It is
If I
not wrong, but sometimes you can omit these prepositions. It's not necessary that you use it every time. Okay. Uh, but yeah, this is again, it's not wrong. At the beginning, no, not at the beginning. Even if you're writing, you should say in the beginning of this week. But that is unnecessary. Okay, you need to cut out things which does not add to the meaning, right? It gives you full meaning when you say heavy rains are expected beginning this week. So if that is your aim should always be to cut down on, unnecessary things, right? If it is not really required, then don't use them, right? It may be right. So for example, I can use many other methods. I can add many other things to this sentence, okay, and make it lengthy, right? One part of writing is also that don't make your sentences unnecessarily lengthy. So don't add words or phrases that is not adding to the meaning of your sentence. Somebody has asked something. Let me just quickly. Maybe there is one which adds more meaning to the sentence. Yes. So see, my point is that particular phrase that you see there, it's not extremely important, but maybe in certain contexts you have to add it. So, but if it is not important, what it is doing there, right? The question should always be that if it is not important, then why did anybody write it there? Now, although it may not be adding too much to the the paragraph itself, to the information or the topic being discussed in the paragraph itself, it is acting as a linking phrase. So we talked about cohesion. When you have to ensure that there is a proper, a flow between the sentences, sometimes you have to place certain things in between two sentences in order to ensure that there is a good flow from one to the next. Okay, so writing too many short sentences one after the other can make it look very boring, and the tone can become very monotonous, right? Very boring and dull. So to avoid these things, to add some rhythm to your writing, right? To add some rhythm and flow to the writing, you place these phrases, right? It may by itself not have any particular role to perform. It may just be adding some sort of information which is not like really relevant. But the major task stylistically of such phrases in a sentence would be to, and particularly in a paragraph, would be to act as a linking phrase to ensure a rhythm and flow to the writing, right? So the point here is when you are adding an introductory phrase for that purpose, you should follow it up with a comma. So your introductory phrase should be separated from your main clause, the independent sentence, with a comma. This is a very common error you find in writing. A lot of people will omit this comma. Okay, this is a very important part. There has to be a comma after the introductory phrase. Okay, understood? That's the first one. Second one, missing comma in a compound sentence. Okay, now this is something that many people would not have heard of. Okay, when you're writing when you're writing a compound sentence, what's a compound sentence? When you have two separate independent clauses joined together with a coordinating conjunction like and. So what are the two independent clauses here? I was quite scared. Second is I looked around to see if I was all alone. Okay, so both of them are separate good sentences, grammatical sentences, independent sentences. They are joined together by the coordinating conjunction and, right? Which makes them a compound sentence. When both the sentences when two sentences are joined together and when both of them have independent statuses, you call them the compound sentence, right? One thing a lot of people would not do, or they would omit, or they would forget while writing a compound sentence is this comma. So there needs to be a comma before your coordinating conjunction. So you write your first sentence, comma, then your coordinating conjunction and the second sentence. That is the right way of writing down a compound sentence. Most of the people would skip this comma. They would simply add the and keep it there, right? So that is not how it should be done. You need to precede the coordinating conjunction with a comma. This is the second punctuation, most commonly found punctuation errors in writing. Now, third one, comma splices. Now, this is what I was talking about, in run-on sentences. Remember run-on sentences? What was it? When you could not, you shouldn't use two separate sentences together with a comma. Okay. So if you are doing that, like we saw in the previous case, if you have two separate sentences, independent sentences, right? Like in the previous case too, what did you do? You put a comma and then an and. So that is one method of saving it from becoming a run-on sentence or a fuse sentence, right? Another method would be, look at this particular sentence we have. I am skilled at swimming. I do butterfly strokes, right? So three ways to retrieve, three ways to save the sentence, the original sentence in the example, which is a run-on sentence, are the following. The first one is you put a semicolon after the first sentence. So I am skilled at swimming, semicolon. I do butterfly strokes. This is correct. Okay, so you have saved it from becoming a run-on statement. Second method to do that is to add a comma and then an and, like the previous sentence, right? In the previous slide, like we did here, I was quite scared, comma, and I looked around to see if I was all alone. The same case, the same method has been used here to save it from run-on sentences. So I am skilled at swimming, comma, and I do butterfly strokes. Okay. Third method is to simply separate it out. Okay. So don't use a comma, don't use and, don't try to bring it together. You can separate it out using full stop. So I am skilled at swimming, one sentence. I do butterfly strokes, a separate sentence, right? So you have 1 to 3 methods in order to save a sentence from becoming a fuse sentence or a run-on sentence, right? This is the third one. Now, fourth one, missing or misplaced possessive as apostrophes. This is a very
Ma'am,
common mistake again. Arun,
ma'am,
yes?
yes, I want to ask in the second last sentence, it is okay. But if suppose I say I'm skilled at swimming and I don't put comma and continue and I do butterfly strokes, but I don't use comma, is this correct or not? If I'm using
No.
this,
Without the
is
comma, you are committing an error of punctuation.
but
Okay.
ma'am, suppose I am skilled at swimming and I do butterfly strokes because I'm adding and but not putting comma. Is it mandatory?
It is mandatory. That is why this has been put up into the editing proofreading
We
part,
are
no?
connecting, but we are connecting two sentence with and comma is required.
Arun, there are writing conventions. Okay, so these are things that are universally recognized. You need to, so you run into a problem of few sentence. Now, few sentence, what does it mean? You are putting two sentences together, okay, two independent sentences together, and yes, because you're joining two sentences. These are two heavy elements, right? It is not like, apple and orange. You have one full sentence and then another full sentence. Both of them are weighty, right? So there needs to be enough separation between both of them, right?
Okay, okay.
To indicate, to emphasize on the part that you are dealing with two separate sentences, right? And the events that happen in these two sentences can be totally different. And they are weighty elements with a lot of segments within the language. To show
That is
that
why
variation and separation, you use,
that is why it is important to put comma. Okay.
yes,
Because
yeah,
these two are very betty things and very different things. But suppose
yeah.
we are saying that apple and mango, then there is no need
No,
because
no,
these
there you
have.
don't do. No.
Okay. And ma'am, I have a
Okay.
confusion with the semicolon. Where to put the semicolon?
Semicolon after the, in this case or general?
But what is the difference between semicolon and comma?
Oh, comma is just used to show separation. Semicolon, separation of entities. Semicolon is usually used when you have to show separation in ideas. Okay. When you have to separate ideas to be represented, but in continuation, you use a semicolon. But it is if you're just separating out objects from each other, then
So
entities, then you use a
what
comma.
what is the difference between the second sentence and third sentence? Because in the second sentence you have used semicolon, and in the third sentence you have used a comma. So what is the difference between these two? Am I audible, ma'am?
You are audible. I don't have any, there is no difference between both of them. They are just two different ways of saving the sentence from a run-on, becoming a few sentence. That's all. So there are three different ways in which you can do that. One is to separate it out using a semicolon. Second is to just add a comma and use the coordinating conjunction and. Okay, and the third one is to separate them out completely. You're not going to put them in anywhere, not going to put them together in any way. You just treat them as two separate sentences. These are three different ways you can do that. Okay, with respect to semicolon, usually semicolons are used when you are talking about something in continuation, like in the sentence, right? I am skilled at swimming. I do butterfly strokes. They are two related sentences, right? Separate sentences. Butterfly strokes is something that you do in swimming. So this person is still talking about swimming and the skills, and then as an additional explanation to that, the person says, I do butterfly strokes, right? So they're related sentences, but because they are weighty sentences, they cannot be fused together. There has to be some sort of separation. And that separation is facilitated either by a semicolon or a comma and, or simply two separate sentences. Okay.
It means that a semicolon and a comma are both they are similar, I think.
They are not similar. They are used for separation, but comma is mostly used to separate entities and semicolon to show separation of ideas. Okay, you can read upon this. You have like detailed explanations about punctuations, all separate punctuations. We don't use all of them so regularly, but these are the common ones: comma, full stop, semicolon, etc. Right?
Okay.
Okay, now missing or misplaced possessive apostrophes. Okay, this is also another thing. It's just because people get confused between the usage of apostrophe. S, right? Apostrophe S is usually when you have to show possession, right? And the other one is to show plurals. The first thing, the example that you see here, Asha's office desk looks really neat, right? There, this is the case of missing apostrophe. You have to show Asha's office, right? Whose office? Asha's office. The office belongs to Asha. So, in such cases, when you have to show possession, belongingness, you have to use an apostrophe S, right? So, Asha apostrophe S, office desk, looks really neat, right? Second one, officers. This one has a apostrophe, okay, but it does not need it. What we meant here, what the sentence means here is officers in plural, right? Officers should report to the center on time, right? So this is a case where officers is used as a plural noun, right? Not as a possessive noun, right? So here you don't need an apostrophe. So this one is a case of misplaced apostrophe. Okay, missing and misplaced apostrophe. Very simple. If you don't have to show a possession, then you don't use apostrophe. That's all. Okay, and the last one here, the one that you were asking, the difference between semicolon and comma, this, look at this. Pencils, color pens, and writing pads were distributed among the children. All right. So all of them separate entities, and this would usually happen only when there are more than two entities in a series. Okay, just two, like apples and oranges, you don't use one. But if you have more than two, apple, oranges, grapes, then apples, comma, oranges, comma, and grapes. Okay. So yeah, to separate out entities in a series, in a list, okay, as they call it, you use a comma, right? A series comma. Sometimes it's referred to as a series comma. So the right way to write it would be pencils, comma, color pens, comma, and writing pads were distributed among the children. Okay. So these are the basic punctuation errors that you would see in writing normally. Okay. Now, some errors related to grammar. Now, this can be personalized. Some people would have problems with respect to the ones you see on screen. Some people will have problems of their own, okay, because certain concept is not clear to them. So, you cannot have like a master list of grammatical errors that somebody can commit. But the most commonly committed errors among writers of English, okay, non-native writers of English could be the one that you see on screen. The first and the major problem, the first and the major error that you see with respect to grammar is that of agreement. Two types of agreement, one between the subject and the verb in a sentence, right? So, for example, work at Infosys, right? At the Infosys. So for every other personal pronoun, okay, every other pronoun, it's going to be work. So I work, we work, you work, right? And they work. Only for the third person singular, which is he, she, it's going to be works, right? So he works at the Infosys, she works at the Infosys. So that's the only variation there. Only the singular form of the third person is going to show that variation. But this subject verb agreement is very, very important. What is subject verb agreement? You would have already heard about them in the lectures, right? So I'm not going to do to do that in the detail. Basically, your subject needs to agree with your verb in person, number, and gender. In English, we don't have gender markers. Only person and number has to be taken care of when you are using subject and verb, right? Another thing in agreement, pronoun and antecedent. What is pronoun and antecedent? Um, Antecedent is that particular referential entity which the pronoun refers to. Okay, there should be something in the sentence that the pronoun refers to, right? So, for example, say he went, he was, um, yeah, so for example, you have a sentence like, I'll quickly give you the example. So when you talk about the antecedent and the pronoun, what we are referring to is again with respect to gender. Okay, so you will have to ensure. So if it is he, then it has to be followed with a his. You can't say her there. This is what basically we mean by the agreement between antecedent and the pronoun. Suppose the example you have is something like each, okay, so for example, okay, each of the each of the gifts or each of the boxes, okay, each of the boxes have been sent to the customers, okay, each of the boxes have been sent to their customers. For example, that is the sentence you have. Each of the boxes have been sent to their customers. Okay, what is the problem with the sentence? Each of the boxes have been sent to their customers. Each of the boxes have been sent to their customers. Do you see an error?
Yes, it should be has
What?
been. Each of the box has been
Each of the box has been sent to
the customer.
its customer. Okay, because each of the boxes we are referring to singular entities, right? So it's not all of the boxes, we are referring to one among each of the box, right? So that we have no correction with.
And
Uh,
suppose we use the customer, then it is wrong because we are talking about the particular customer, particular the customer.
I said their customer, not the customer. Each of the boxes has been have been sent to their customers, is what I said. THEIR,
Oh,
right?
then it is wrong. Then
Then
it
it
is
is wrong.
either it is its, and we can also use the ma'am or not. We can use the customers. Its is okay. It is correct. But suppose I say the customer, each of the
Sent to
box.
the customer.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. The has to be used very carefully because if you have not given any reference to it before in the sentence, then you cannot use it. Okay. The is again one thing which people use very, everywhere they want, but that should not be the case. Okay. You should use it only in the situations. It may look grammatically correct, but it may not convey the correct meaning that you want to. Even if you're not marked wrong on grammar, you may not be you may not be giving away the correct meaning if you use the there. Okay, so not grammatically wrong, but you can run into trouble in the long run if you keep using the without knowing why you're using it. Okay, the usually is only to refer to specific things. If you have made a reference to it before, then you can use the, otherwise you should stay away from it. Or if you're talking about something that is very unique in nature, okay, then you can use the. And a couple of other things. Otherwise, usage of the is unnecessary. Yeah, right, others specific. That's
Ma'am,
true.
I want to ask another question. I don't know whether it is in the purview of this class or not, but I want to ask where we should use the customer or where we should use the
Okay,
customer.
that might require a different sort of this thing because it's a whole different topic. Okay, articles require a very different. It takes a long time. We don't
But
have the
I
space to do it here.
hear me because I am confused in the
I understand that. Maybe what we can do is we can do one thing on articles. Anyway, we are trying to revise a couple of videos, so we'll do it within that. But it's a long topic. It requires a lot of explanation, right? Uh, so we'll do that. I'll keep this in mind. We'll do one on the article specifically. I don't think we have one now. We'll do it.
but this is your last class, ma'am. Is
For
this
this workshop, yes.
yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, no, there won't be any more classes, Adarsh. This is the last for this session. Okay. So yeah, so pronoun and the antecedent, what is it? You don't use there. You will have to say it's because we are referring to single subjects, right? Individual boxes within the collection. Second one is of tense consistency. What is tense consistency? We looked at it in the last class. So if you start off with present tense, then complete it off with present tense, right? Unless the situation demands, unless you have to, show something that has happened in the past, or you have to use a present perfect tense. Do not unnecessarily jump to the to a different sort of tense. Unless the situation demands you to change the tense, don't. Please maintain consistently the tense that you've been using, right? So that is about tense consistency. Pronoun consistency, again, this is with respect to if you're using, if your subject is he, then the objective pronoun, the personal one that follows, has to be his, correct? Yeah. If it is she, then her, right? Do not mix them up, right? Especially between the gender and also the number, right? So don't write there if it is he, you have to write it as his. Verb endings, careful, if see for regular verbs, it will, in the past tense, it will end with ed. If it is present tense, then it's going to end with an s, right? So all those endings are also very important because they, the first point, right? They contribute towards the agreement feature of the sentence, which is very, very important. So verb endings also have to be taken care of. Proper preposition. Now, this is a place where learning some of those grammatical collocations can help you. What do we mean by grammatical collocations? Certain words, they go together. Collocation is when a pair that always goes together, right? So we have lexical collocations and we also have grammatical. So example would be interested in. Okay, differentiate between, right? Some of these prepositions, they will only go with a certain kind of words. You don't find them with others, or this is the most commonly used combination. So learning grammatical collocations can help you to use your prepositions also properly. A lot of people would commit mistakes on this end as well, right? They'll use a wrong preposition along with the words. So that can also run you into trouble. But more than knowing the grammatical collocations, you should understand what prepositions are. Okay, what prepositions do, what are the meanings of the different kind of prepositions you have, where you can use them, right? So you have prepositions of place, you have prepositions of time, right? What does in refer to? How do we use in? How do we use on? How do we use at? Right? All of this has to be known properly. You need to understand the usage of preposition, and along with that, if you also know the grammatical collocations, it would be really nice. Okay. Dangling or misplaced modifiers. So modifiers is either an adjective, okay, or an adverb, or an adverbial phrase, or an adjective phrase. What does dangling or misplaced mean? Whenever you are modifying something, right, the modifier has to appear along with the modified object. Okay, they cannot be separated from each other. So for example, if you have a sentence like this, okay, just to give you, an understanding of what dangling or misplaced modifiers mean. You see, I have submitted the or I have stored, okay, I have stored the uh, I have stored the pieces of cake. Okay, I have stored or I have kept the pieces of cake um, in the fridge that were left over. Okay, I have stored, just listen to this sentence carefully. I have kept the pieces of cake, okay, in the fridge that were left over. Okay, what is the problem here? What's the problem here? I have kept the pieces of cake in the fridge that were left over. What is the modifying phrase here? You see a that clause here, that were left over, right? So this is your modifier phrase, and what is it modifying? What was left over? Yeah, correct, Adarsh. That were left over is your modifying phrase. What was left over? Pieces of cake, right? The pieces of cake. So then these two segments should appear together. In the sentence that I said, I have kept the pieces of cake in the fridge that were left over, right? So this is an example of misplaced or dangling modifier. The modifier is separated from what it is modifying. So the correct way of writing it would be, I have kept the pieces of cake that were left over in the fridge or in the refrigerator, as you want to write it, right? So do not separate the modified item and the modifier. They have to always appear together. Okay, if you remove them, if you separate them out, it can create confusions, it can create ambiguity to the readers, right? So this is also a very common error of grammar that you see, right? So together, if you can take care of all of these, both the punctuation errors, grammar errors, and the next one is of spellings, general spellings, of course you need to have a understanding of them. And the second thing that you have to you have to double check are these words, a couple of words which are used as nouns and verbs, and they have different spelling when used as a noun and different spelling when used as a verb. So example, advise, right? Practice. In American English, usually they do not use this distinction, particularly with the case of in the case of the word practice. But if you're following the British Convention, then SE is the spelling that they use for verb, and CE is the one that they use for noun. So you can follow any spelling convention you want. There is no restriction on that. But then be consistent. If you have used the British spelling system in the document, then from the beginning till the end, it needs to be that. Okay, you cannot midway through change the spelling convention to the American style, right? Or if you use the American, then throughout the document, you will have to use that. Do not change your spelling conventions in between, right?
Ma'am,
So,
American convention, what will be the spelling of the advice? If suppose I'm using it as a verb, it will be CE or SE.
SC, SC.
And what will the spelling as a noun?
Noun is CE.
No, in British convention, but
Yeah,
in
this is in British convention.
I want to know in American convention, what is the spelling of advise as a
They
noun and
use SC. They don't have CE. They only use SE.
okay. There is
Yes.
no okay. They
No.
simply use SE
They use SE. They don't use CE.
in both
Yes,
uh,
yes. Practice also they will use only ISE, no ICE. That ICE is only in the British system.
but suppose, ma'am, if the person is writing a test for British exam, so person should use
No,
follow the British
no, there
convention
is
or
no problem like that. This is a universally accepted thing that languages have, especially because English is at least predominantly spoken in 5 or 6 countries, right?
okay.
So this is an accepted convention. They have an agreement on this, so no problem. The only criteria is that you maintain the spelling standards. Don't mix things up. Okay, if you're following one, then follow that entirely. Don't use American system somewhere and then British system somewhere. Use throughout the document, throughout your write-up, you will have to maintain your spelling. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so word choice related errors. This is at this stage a little difficult to catch. Maybe at this
You are not audible, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Am I audible, all of you?
You are audible
Okay.
right now.
You can still see the screen, right?
Yes, sir. To see the
Okay.
screen also.
Okay, fine. All right, sorry. So we lost connection. Uh, right. So undefined words or phrases, what would they be? They basically mean the ones that you are not sure of, you don't know the meaning of. Okay. Or some of those words which can have more than one connotative meanings, right? It might only denote one thing, but then when you talk about the meanings, it can mean more than one thing, and sometimes the meanings are not as desirable as what you want, right? So it can create confusion to the reader if more than one meaning is available for a word. So undefined. If you're using such words, then you will have to put the extra effort to define it properly so that the people who read it are not confused, right? So, avoid using such words. If you have to use them, no other chance, okay, no other method, no running away from it, then define it. You make it a point that you define it properly while you write. Irrelevant phrases like the one that we saw in that sentence, right? According to the weather report, right? Not really required, but if it is doing the function, performing the function of linking, then okay, some sort of role it has. But even in such cases, you have to make sure that you don't use like very lengthy, cluttered phrases. Okay? Use a phrase to allow the linking, but make sure that you don't use something that is like really cluttered, has like the phrase itself has like some 10, 11 words in it, right? So that's lengthy and it's cluttered. We don't have to use something like that for linkage. For linkage, there are many techniques. You have transitional devices, which are like simple words or short phrases. Okay. You don't have to use like a whole lengthy. Sometimes you use sentence also, but that's a very rare occasion. Okay. Just because you can use a sentence to link, a whole sentence to link, it does not mean that you do that in every other sentence. It makes your sentence very wordy and, lengthy, and people don't read. We all know if it is really lengthy, then we don't have to, nobody likes reading it. So that's one thing. So irrelevant phrases that needs to be cut out. Vague pronoun references. So unless your pronoun is properly related to something that has gone before, it should have a referent properly. Okay. So if I give you an example like she has a bag and a bottle. Okay. It is yellow in color. She has a bag and a bottle. It is yellow in color. I'm not telling you what is yellow in color, right? I'm just saying it is yellow in color. So it refers to what? Does it refer to the bag or the bottle? This is not defined. This is not clearly understood. So this particular situation is called a vague pronoun reference. So if you have more than one entity, then you have to make sure if you're using a pronoun, then it needs to properly refer back to its referent. In such cases, you should avoid using the pronoun altogether. So you can write something like, she has a bag and a bottle. The bag is yellow in color or the bottle is yellow in color. This is how you make it more refined and clarified, right? So don't use a vague pronoun reference. Filler words. Okay, filler words usually appear when you're speaking, but they can also appear in writing. You will see some people constantly using but. Okay, every sentence they have but and. Okay, every sentence but and also. So filler words. You're using filler words in order to even words like so, therefore. Okay, different people have their own methods of doing it. Some people use but, some use so, some use therefore. So these filler words need to be completely avoided, right? If they, because they're not doing any function, right? They're not doing anything. They're just eating away space and just cluttering the whole writing. Last one, too many jargons or ornate expressions. Okay, something which is very ornamental, very old, very archaic. Okay, they're so old that people these days don't even understand what that usage means. It looks very fancy, looks very ornamental. However, it has no. People don't understand it because maybe it is something that has got no significance or relevance in the age or time that we live. Right. So such expressions need to be completely avoided, right? Example would be something like, um, the last nail in the coffin, right? People have this is the last nail in the coffin to indicate that this was someone's complete failure. Instead of writing something as ornate as that, you can simply write, okay, it was a miserable failure on his part. Okay, this was a spectacular failure. So you can, instead of using a phrase that is ornate, outdated, you can choose for better, newer single phrases, sorry, short phrases or single words. Okay, that will do your job much better than something like that. Jargons again, words that are inaccessible to people. Okay, something that nobody understands. Okay, you might want to use it because it sounds new, but then it is remote from the reader. The reader doesn't understand what it is. So don't use too many jargons. Use it only in spaces where you specifically need it. Okay, you cannot replace it with anything else, then you have to use it. But if there are better replaceable words which are accessible to people, then go ahead and use them. Okay, so these are the these are some of the points that you need to keep in mind while you're editing and revising your paragraph, whether a long paragraph, short paragraph, or your essay. This will come handy for everything else, right? So errors related to basic editing, right, about simple sentences and other things. Then punctuation related errors, grammar related errors, spelling, and word choice related errors. Okay. So this is the basic thing. Now we wouldn't have like a lot of time to do the other part, but we can at least do 3. I had 6 on my slides, but half of it we can definitely do. So I'm going to share that screen with you without wasting any time. We'll talk more if required while we are doing the activity. Okay. So just a moment, let me generate that page. Mm, once here. Okay. Um, can you all see the screen? Yes, no. So I have, oh, okay. I think I've only sent it to everyone. Yes, I've pasted the link in the chat also. So people who are not able to join, otherwise you can join there. If somebody is connected, you're all able to see the screen properly, right? Okay. Okay. Right. No problem. As long as you can see it, it's not a problem, right? So, okay. The first one, I think, I don't know who wrote this. Again, I forget. It should be one among Adarsh or Arun. Adarsh, is this yours? No. Okay, then probably Arun. So what we'll do is we will look at this, right? So I think this is from two different activities. This was one from the first one where we were doing free writing, right, about memorable trip. And the second one when we employed the techniques of descriptive writing onto this particular topic, right? So now we have like a base, right? A good enough data with you. Now, if you have understood the editing and the proofreading part, then you should be able to apply some of them here. Okay. So see if you have any punctuation errors, you think you can rearrange. This is for everybody. Okay. All of you are going to work on the same um, sample. Okay. We'll do at least three so that we have some hands-on approach on this. Okay. So 3 minutes each would be okay. 3 or 4 minutes each would be okay for all the three of them. Just work on this and I will discuss it with you. I had written a few things from the last class. Let me see.
What is the code for joining the pd.com?
Sorry?
What is the code for joining?
Code.
Yeah, code.
Okay, I hadn't paid attention to it. Just a moment, okay? Oh, does anyone remember the code? Just a minute, I'll get back to you. You can still see the screen, no? The people who are working. Okay, so I think it is QOT ZYS. Is it so?
QOT space Z.
QOT ZYS.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I
Okay.
got it.
I'm also doing this along with you so that you get an idea, right? So I'm not going to rewrite the sentences, but I'm just trying to point out a few things which can be improved. Okay, so last time we visited late was very fantastic. It was had a great time with the mountains. We explored the France and Wales. Yes. Completed till the second pile. Okay, you can maybe look at it till there. I have quite a few of them with me actually. It is just shooting. So we praise. We praise. Okay. Very famous singer. Around uh, sides. Okay, so I'm going to look at what people have here. One of the places we visited, okay, last summer we visited Leh. It was a fantastic trip. We had a great time together in the mountains. We also explored the Trans Himalayas a lot. We understood the basic facts. Yeah, so I see some of you have corrected those errors. I will go over the errors once again. At that time, we also saw a lot of wild animals and birds, and this mountain region is a great home. Okay, so you don't have to repeat and okay often. So we also saw a lot of wild animals and birds. Full stop, and you can begin a next sentence. Okay, this mountain region is a great home to many rare species. We visited was oh, we moved on to the next one. Okay, sorry. Uh, there's a very famous shooting. Okay, we had a great time in the mountains. We explored the Trans Himalayas a lot and we understood the basic facts about it. We saw a bunch of wild flora and fauna. We experienced the flora and fauna. Okay, bunch of is now flora and fauna in itself is a group term, so you don't say bunch. Okay, so we experience the vivid flora and fauna. You can write it like that. Okay, instead of wild, you can say flora and fauna cannot be wild. Okay, you either say rich, okay, uh, or vivid. Okay, all of those things can be used. Okay, now I have those of you are still writing. You can pay attention to this for a moment here. So for this particular exercise, right, that we have done. Look at this. The very first line you have last time we visited Leh. Now, what is the problem here? Um, you have not specified the time. So it's always better. So as I told you in writing, it's always good to be specific, right? Specific, using specific language is one important part in descriptive writing. We talked about this, right? So instead of saying I own a pair of shoes, you'll have to write I own a pair of running shoes. So here again, what is done last time? So last time is very vague. It's not specific. Instead, you can change it to last summer, last December, right? So add more specificity to your writing. Say specifically what time the year, right? So that is the thing with the first one. Okay. As such, there is no problem with the organization. Okay. It's written well. Yes, sure. So there is no problem with the organization as such because this is a descriptive paragraph. We don't go very strict by the order in which is written unless it is, really jumbled and we don't understand. Uh, so no problem with the organization of the content as such, but you need to focus on, these small segments in language which has to go well. So the first one is that. Then second one is it was very fantastic trip, a very fantastic or simply a fantastic, very not needed because fantastic itself is like a intense adjective. So you can avoid using very, right? So simply say a fantastic, what is that? Trip, right? So adjectives always need to be preceded with an article, right? Don't write an adjective without an article. A great book, okay? A mighty king, a loyal friend, right? So a fantastic trip. It needs to have an article. Himalayas. Okay, why Himalayas? Because Himalayas ranges, right? Either you say Himalayan ranges or if you're just calling it by the name, then you say the Himalayas. Okay, not just Himalaya. Then next one, basic facts, same thing. Okay, so adjectives are not singular or plural. You write basic facts, not basics facts, right? Noun can be singular or plural, but adjective cannot be, right? So you write basic fact, not basics. At the same time, also, next one, at the same time, we also saw a lot of wild. You don't have to use too many connectors together. Either you use also, okay, we also saw a lot of wild animals, or you can say at the same time we saw. So don't use too many connectors together. Just use one, which you think is proper enough for showing the connections, right? So don't use more than one connectors unless it is required. Okay. Together, please don't use too many of them. Right. Especially we, now the next para, especially we visited a lake, Pangong Lake, that comes in both India and China. Now this sentence has a lot of errors with respect to the style as well as, the phraseology, the way you have arranged things in the sentence. So, especially we visited a lake, especially might be a wrong word to use here. You will have to look for a different kind of adverb that would fit there. Okay. So either you change especially to something that is more fitting in that place, or you simply say, of all the things we did. So I've given you all the things we did. Our visit to the Pangong Lake was the best. Okay, was the most memorable. Anything you can write whatever you want. Now, comes in both India and China. So river, right? The river usually is found across a place. So you would use the preposition across there. You would say it is located across India and China. Okay. So that is how you will have to represent the sentence. Now, next one.
Ma'am,
It is
lake
very famous for this.
is not a river, ma'am. It is lake, and 60% part of this lake is in China, and 40% is in India. So it is not across. It
Just a minute, huh?
public. It is not
Just a
public.
minute. I'll turn down the volume here. Your voice is not clear.
Uh, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying that this is not river. This is lake, and 60% part of this lake is in China, and only 40% in India. And it is not the actually it is not separating these two countries.
Yeah, so the sentence does not say anything about separation. It just says that a part of this lake can be found both in India and China. Without giving any details, the person has simply said that this is seen across both the countries, right? Seen both in India and China, right? Both we can see it this side and that side. So details the author has not preferred to give it. The person just want to say that see You will find this located both in this river in both the countries. That's all. That is your choice. If you want to give details, you can, but this author does not want to. So they just left it there. Okay.
Okay.
So whatever details you want to add, that is your call. All right. Now, shooting. You meant shooting, right? So now shooting is a very commonplace thing, a very informal usage. You don't use that. Instead, you even has a spelling error. You will have to rephrase that whole sentence that you've written, 2, 3 sentences that you've written there. You will have to rewrite it as a very famous scene. So I'm clubbing the 2 sentences that you have written, right? It is very famous for the shooting of the movie Three Idiot, where last scene of this movie has been filmed. It is very famous scene of this film. You don't have to repeat this again. You can find a way to club them together, which I did. So instead I've rephrased it into a very famous scene from Three Idiots, comma, right? The Bollywood movie was filmed here. Okay. So that is enough. You can club these 2 into one full sentence instead of repeating it unnecessarily. The last sentence is okay. So instead of apart, you are going to use the word besides. Okay, that's what you meant. No, besides the lake, you also visited. So, what is this? Morari Lake, situated on the border of what is this? Himachal Pradesh and UT Lake. Okay. So whoever, I think, I don't know who has written this. Adarsh, is it you? I don't see you here. Okay, anyway, so whoever it is, no, it's not you. Okay, right. So these are the errors, okay, surface level errors, both of grammar, punctuation, and other things that, and a few linguistic changes, phraseology related errors, like where do you place a certain phrase and all that. Very, not serious errors, yet, something that you can do in order to make this a perfect piece of writing, right? So you can take care of these things, okay? Now, if you permit me, I'll go to one more example so that you have a taste of how this is done. But if it is time up for you, then we can um, close. This one was a good example, actually. It had too many of. Which one is yours, Adarsh? I will show a few things. I do not know which one among this is yours. And it is taking a lot of time to load. Is it just for you or can you see the screen? I am still very much. You can do the third one. Okay. Uh-huh. You guys can work on the third one. Correct. Do you see the edits? Those of you still here and watching this? Okay, so for the first one, for me, a trip is like a key of refreshment and joy. For me, needs to be followed by a comma, like the one that we saw, the punctuation error. Why? Because this is an introductory phrase, so it needs to be followed by a comma, right? Now, from the second sentence onwards, what could be better way out of routine life? That is, you if you're posing a question, then you need to stretch it out a little bit. Otherwise, you can write it like a sentence, like the suggestion you have here. What could be a better way to relieve oneself from the pains? I used pains. You can change that word to something else, right? Whatever, something that means similar to tiredness, okay? Or, the hustle of a routine life, anything, okay? You can write anything, change it into a sentence to give it more details, to add more details. Then the next one, trip is such a experience. First of all, it's okay. So experience, you will have to write an experience, even if you're using it that way. But I have changed it. I have modified it into what the trip can do to you, right? So mostly like a reasoning. So remember, when you're writing supporting statements, one of the methods that you use is to prove your claim, right? So why is this is a memorable trip? So you can give reasons to why it is. So I wrote more like a reason statement. So trip helps me to experience myself, not myself, myself, without having to worry about work and world. Okay, so that looks like a better construction to me than the one you see there. And my fave trip, what is it? Did you mean favorite trip? I did not include it here. So don't use shorthands, okay? No short forms and shorthands in writing, not allowed here, okay? My favorite trip would be of Kedarnath, comma, okay? The one that I took with my family and close friends, okay? With my family and close friends, you can stretch it a little bit to make it fit into the flow of what you're writing, right? The favorite trip that I went to was towards Kedarnath with my family and close friend. You can write it like that, okay? And my favorite trip. It was favorite but changed due to my keyboard. Oh, okay, fine. Anyway, and also beginning the sentence with and. Okay, this is also not something that is good. This is also against the writing convention. So, my favorite or my most memorable, favorite is different from memorable. Okay, you are supposed to write on memorable. So, use the word memorable and adjectives that mean similar to memorable, not favorite. So, the most memorable trip that I took was to Kedarnath with my family and close friends. Okay, without any second thoughts. Okay, without any second thoughts, I can say that that is fine. I can say that my Kedarnath was the most memorable one. Okay, you've already mentioned trip, so now you don't have to write trip again. So you write Kedarnath trip was the most memorable one. Okay. Uh, then now that after that trip, the ones that you have written, they're all separate sentences, right? So there is a problem with the punctuation here. You haven't capitalized it, right? So I needs to capitalize, and you have to break it here. Don't make your sentence too long. If you write all of them together, this is going to be three separate sentences, three or four separate sentences all clubbed together. It's a clear case of few sentences. So you need to separate them all out or find a way to add them as phrases to a single sentence. But since all of them talk about separate things, it's always nice that you separate it out using full stop. So you break it here, okay, at the most memorable trip or the most memorable one, full stop, and then you begin the next one. It was full of positive vibes, okay, break it there. Don't use and again in the beginning of the sentence if you are breaking it here. If you're putting it together, then it was full of positive vibes and the cherry on the top was the beauty of the place. Okay, full stop. Then the last one, you will have to write it as a separate sentence again. The trip was truly. Okay, now you are basically what you're doing. The concluding statement, what does it do? If you remember from the structure that we discussed, it restates or reinforces, right? So you began by saying that it was a key of refreshment and joy. You're reiterating or restating it again by saying the trip was truly mesmerizing. So both the paragraphs that we discussed for the editing purpose, they were okay with respect to the organization part. Okay, mostly I think it's also because this is a descriptive type of writing, so people haven't messed up with the organization part. Okay, you have done it well, but you need to pay attention to these language devices and usages, especially phraseology, construction, where to keep which phrase. Okay, these things you need to be a little careful of. Okay. Yeah, anything else? Any other questions that anybody has? So it's 5:30 already. I think it's time we close. Okay, all right. So it was good to be here, right? So you guys can write in case you need any help further, but keep practicing this. Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
Yes, Arun, do you have anything to ask?
No, ma'am. I'm very grateful to you for this session. It is very interesting session.
Okay, thank you. We'll see if we can hold more sessions of this nature and try and open it for more people. If
Yeah.
this time we did it in a controlled fashion because there were too many registrants, but then the point is we only want people who really need it, not anybody. Okay. So you will only learn anything if you stay through the sessions. Okay, if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
just are like visitors once in a while, then you definitely lose out on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you for joining in, and we'll meet you again. Something.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I will write to you, ma'am. I'll write you, ma'am.
Sure, sure. Definitely.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
See you. Yeah, Adarsh. Thank you too.